Morning, the old man here, September 15th, 2025. The last few days, I've been managing to get quite a bit of things done around the shop and other things. Also managed to find some time to do some deep dives. Really had to sort out a lot of things in my own head, actually. There's so many things that don't make sense or didn't make sense. I'm starting to make more sense of them, taking bits and pieces from many videos actually, and really can't, which I normally like to do. If there's credit to be given, I'd like to give credit to whoever deserves that credit to help put pieces of the puzzle together. But honestly, this time I've watched so many videos and taken so many pieces from different videos and what's going on that I really can't give any one particular person or channel any credit, of which I normally like to do, but can't do it this time. The interesting thing also is, let me start out by saying the Charlie Kirk thing is totally not what it appears to be, much like most assassinations. Donald Trump's attempted assassination, no matter who they want to blame it on, an individual, whatever, that attempted assassination in reality is the deep state. I'll take that for whatever it's worth. You can blame it on any three-letter agency you'd like. You could blame it on a Mossad. There's lots of different parties involved in the deep state. But at any rate, I believe this was a deep state mission, mostly to divide the left and the right in the United States. They're blaming it on somebody that was part of the LGBTQ community. Now, let me tell you, I'm not a big fan of those degenerates, if you will, not at all. But at the end of the day, they are somebody's pawn. That whole system is set up by the deep state. And again, it's somebody to blame. They want the division between the left and the right. They want social unrest. They want civil war. Don't fall for it. The real blame goes to the deep state, though they are the enemy. The LGBTQ community, honestly, what I really want to say is they don't have the brain power to put something like this together. They don't have, and what I mean by that is they don't have the tactics. This was obviously an assassination by the deep state. Whatever three-letter agency you want to put that title to, that's fine. I don't care. If I start naming certain three-letter agencies, people just turn the channel right off and won't even listen. They don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. But honestly, it's the deep state. That's where it's coming from. At the end of the day, may God bless his soul, and may his family be guided by God. And I think they will. It's a tragedy that a life, especially of somebody that was so prominent in the movement, and it's not just conservatism, it's movement back to God. Seen one video here where they said that record numbers of people went to church this past Sunday, and rightly so. I think a lot of people need to find their bearings and not believe all the narratives and bullshit you see on TV. So, with that being said, the main thing that I've been deep diving on is how in the hell is the stock market still going to the moon? How could that possibly be true? In my mind, it should have crashed. In many minds, it should have crashed a long time ago. And with that being said, how can gold and silver keep going up to record highs and the stock market keeps going to record highs? It's returned to where it was, and it's even starting to go even higher. And Bitcoin's at near all time highs. How could that be as well? Well, first of all, I think what you'll find is a lot of it is the deep state, or excuse me, get off that tangent. Um, the big money people, the insiders, if you will, they've been selling out of their positions for a long time now. 2.5 years they've been selling out of their positions. Well, the government and the government agencies that come up with these stats have been lying to you, telling you that everything's fine. You know, what are you, crazy? Uh, you know, inflation's only 2% or 2.5, 3%, whatever. Then at one point it was so bad they actually had to admit it was 9%, but whatever. And if they say it's 9, it's 18. If they say it's 2, it's 4, 5. Again, I'll argue for the last 20 years before gold really went on this run, uh, gold was running at about 9.8% per year. And honestly, I think that average, that's been your inflation for the last 25 years. And that's why it seems like no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter how good your stock portfolio is doing, you still seem to be falling behind or not getting where you think you should be getting. Um, it's kind of strange, but basically that's where it's at. Very difficult to put everything into perspective because the narratives will lead you in a different direction if you believe the narratives. So, they've just recently come out again with the labor stats saying that, they missed it over the March of 24 to March of 25. They missed the job stats by almost a million people, 911,000 jobs. That's not a mistake. That's not a mistake. So that they've been revising and then revising again. They come out with a number that looks good, and the average investor, now big boys, they know what the hell's going on. You ain't bullshitting these people. But the average investor, even somebody that's pretty smart, running their own portfolio, they take them stats sometimes too literal, and even if they know that it's a lie, they aren't. Let's say if they're being told 2 and they figure 4% inflation, and then they invest accordingly, and use that as their barometer to see how well they're doing or not doing. If you believe that, but yet instead of 4, it's 8. You're misallocating money. You're not doing a very good investment but at any rate, that's the whole purpose of all those numbers being off. You don't think that's an accident. You don't think there's better ways to do inflation, calculations? Hell yes, there is. They choose not to. And in fact, these are the numbers they're giving you. You can bet they're going by completely different stats. The purpose, I'll say the purpose of the central banks is to fleece you out of money. That is it in a nutshell. For so many years, people have been getting next to nothing either in the banks for interest, or they've been on their bonds, they're getting next to nothing. If you're told there's a 2% inflation and you're getting 4 or 5%, you think you're gaining. Well, in reality, I believe the inflation is much higher than what the bond is even paying out. So in that case, you are going backwards. You are not. The numbers look better. The numbers look good. Even in the stock market, your numbers look good. The numbers keep going up. However, if you look around and see that your money's not going anywhere or not going as far, it can't possibly be 2%. It can't possibly. And now they've even admitted, well, we've kind of given up on 2%. We're shooting for 3. And in reality, that's 6, 7, 8. Who knows what it really is? I'll tell you, it's not good. Let's put it that way. You are going backwards in most investments. Gold and silver, on the other hand, have made 40% ish. I don't take it as a gospel. It's not exactly right, but you know what I'm saying. 40% gains since the first of the year. Well, let me tell you, if you were in anything else, including Bitcoin, you're not doing as well. The big thing to realize is that the big boys are getting out of their stocks and they got to go somewhere. They know full well the bonds, even on the short term, are not paying. Okay, now, are they going to some bonds? Sure, they're going to some bonds. But they're reallocating straight across the board. Some of these big boys are starting to allocate to miners. Some of the big boys are starting to allocate to gold more, silver more. Even if it's only 1 or 2 or 5% from where they were, it doesn't matter. It's making huge gains. And the big boys aren't going to, like these money managers, they're not going to completely go 100% in on gold and silver. One of the reasons for that is if you've got a money manager and he says, look, this market's fucked up, just take all your money and put it in gold, he just put himself out of business. Now that's the truth, is that you'd be much farther ahead if you were 100% in gold rather than anything else, any stock right now. In normal times, stock investing in stock can be profitable, but you got to know the industry. You got to know what's going on. If nothing else, you can follow Warren Buffett. He's got plenty of insiders and plenty of people that he's paying, you can guarantee that, to know the inside information and invest accordingly. He's pulled out a lot. He's got a lot into short-term bonds, and the only reason he's got away with it as long as he does because everybody believes in him. And but honestly, most of your stock managers would, or investment managers would not be able to get away with that, because if they pulled all their money out and went to short-term bonds just to wait and for the stock market to crash, they're not going to get it. They might get away with it for 6 months. I doubt they would get away with it for a year. And Buffett's been going on 2.5 years. In reality, you'll find that when it's all said and done and you look back in history, that we've already been in a recession for probably 2.5 years. There's some guys are saying, well, yeah, if you look at it, we've been in recession for a year. I say bullshit. It's been longer than that. But whatever, it doesn't matter. My opinion don't mean shit anyways. But getting back to the inflation and that and how could the stock market being doing so well and gold and silver doing so well and Bitcoin doing so well and even the beef markets are doing so well. Well, all you got to do is take a look, and this is kind of what opened my eyes. And they didn't put 2 and 2 together, but they showed the gold and stock market put together from Weimar, Germany in 1913 to 24. 1913, things looked pretty normal. By the time you got to 15, 16, it was starting to they were definitely on the road to hyperinflation by 13, 14, and by 23, had gone to the moon. Everything had gone to the moon. Gold, silver, stocks. Well, when your money is hyperinflating, your currency, I should say, not your money, but when your currency is hyperinflating and everything's priced in your currency, well, all the numbers are going to go up. Of course they are. They're all going to look better. But the reality of it is the only thing that's money is gold and silver. So all other metrics are off. If your stock market is priced in silver, or excuse me, if your stock market is priced in dollars, of course the numbers are going to keep going up. So if you're looking at your stock portfolio in a hyperinflation situation, you'll see that the numbers are going to go up. If you're looking at a housing market in a hyperinflation, the numbers keep going up. They don't come down. All of these different things, Bitcoin, whatever, is all going up when you price it in dollars. Now turn around and start pricing things in gold. How many ounces of gold does it take to buy X? Doesn't matter what X is. Maybe X is the share of the Dow Jones. Well, Dow Jones is getting cheaper when you buy it in ounces instead of dollars. The stock market is getting cheaper. The housing is getting cheaper when you price it in ounces instead of dollars. Cars are getting cheaper when priced in ounces. In other words, gold and silver is outpacing inflation. Nothing else is. Everything else is keeping up with inflation the best it can. It still may be behind a little bit, but it's close enough to inflation that it's not going to scare the shit out of you. But when you start pricing things in gold and silver, how many ounces it takes to buy X, whatever X is, and it keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, you ought to be looking at putting on more gold and more silver. Because in reality, that is money. Everything else is a derivative of the dollar. Everything else is a derivative of the dollar. So in other words, if I keep my money in Nvidia, if I had any, but if I kept money in Nvidia and the numbers keep going up, let's say it goes up 10% this year, but in reality, inflation is 12% across the board, I just lost 2%. But it's close enough that most people aren't going to see it because they're looking at the stats put out by the government that inflation is 2 or 3%. They're never going to believe 12%, but if you sit back and think about it, that's exactly what's going on. Gold and silver is front running that across the world. Gold and silver is money. Everything else is a derivative of a fake fiat currency. If I was to sell my Nvidia that I've had for the last, let's say, 5 years, and inflation's been running hot, of which they're not telling you, but it has, did the inflation go up more than the price of my Nvidia stock? I would say it did. However, let's say I made $100,000 on my Nvidia stock. I got to pay tax on that $100,000 capital gain. When in reality, maybe instead of making 100,000, I actually lost 20,000 because if the inflation was 12% and Nvidia went up by 10, my purchasing power was cut by 2%. Therefore, I'm paying capital gains on 100,000, but I lost 120,000 in purchasing power. Nobody sees that. I almost didn't want to make this video because I don't want to scare the shit out of you. But I've come to the conclusion that's exactly what's going on. Do your due diligence and look at the chart of gold and stocks during the Weimar Republic's hyperinflation, and you'll see a chart that looks very similar to our charts right now on gold, silver, Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin wasn't in there, but you'll see Bitcoin going to the moon compared to compared to the dollar. When priced in dollar, Bitcoin's going up. Everything's going up. Nvidia's going up. The stock market's going up. Blah 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 blah. In reality, you've been sold a narrative, and the narrative is that the dollar is worth something and everything should be priced in dollars and that everything's just fine. Don't worry about it. When all the big boys are getting out, they are the only reason gold and silver goes up like it has been is because the big boys are repositioning. I'm not saying they're all in. They're not. They're not all in on gold and silver. If they were, it'd be like, oh my God, gold and silver would be unattainable. There's no way the average person could buy an ounce. But the reality of it is, as they reposition across the world, and they're going to all do it at different times and different paces, but as they do reposition, you will see real money, gold and silver, continue to go up. Now, they may never make, like the central banks may never get, I mean, right now they say average across the world, central banks are only at roughly 20%. Some aren't even there, some are higher than that. But average across the world is 20%, and to make a legitimate gold-backed currency system, they're going to need to be to 40%, and that's a hell of a lot more gold they got to buy. And if you're ahead of that curve while they're buying, investors are buying, big investors are buying gold and silver, you're ahead of that curve and you believe in it now, you'll see that real money will continue to go up while everything else appears to be going up, but in fact, it's not keeping up with inflation. A lot of people, they're not. I mean, I've seen a bit of a panic in the last round of inflation. I've seen people selling shit just to pay bills, to buy gas. I've seen people, to make a house payment, to make a truck payment, to make, buy gas to get to work. I've seen people sell guns. I can't imagine what it's like if you're in the, purchasing and or selling gold and silver. They must be seeing that times 10. But everybody's kind of forgot about it a little bit because the price of gas has gone down. They're feeling better about it. But in reality, the price of everything else that's gone up has stayed up. Beef's going to continue to go up. Fuel across the world, a lot of that is controlled. I think you'll find that demand is falling, therefore, mostly because of, and again, we've been in recession for 2.5 years. They'll say one, but I'll say 2.5 years. That means you've got a lot less consumption of oil because of transportation. Moving these goods across the world, either by ship or by truck or whatever, bringing you vegetables from California, for Christ's sakes, when we could be making this stuff right in our own backyard. But because the markets are so heavily manipulated, the guy on a small scale here can't make any money. So we're getting it trucked across the world, across the country in the case of vegetables. Beef being trucked across, borders, for Christ's sakes. A lot of our beef comes from South America. They truck it up to the border, and then from there it goes up to your big meat processors. And again, there's no reason why we can't do that locally. But locals have been priced out of it and or regulated out of it. And what I mean by that is a lot of your small meat processors, it's very hard to be profitable when regulations on that is basically geared for the big boys. For the big meat processors, they're much more controllable by the government than a small meat processor, and so the government doesn't like that. So they've managed to, whether it's on a state level, federal level, or the combination of the two, they've eliminated a lot of small producers. of both beef and processing beef. So, anyways, beef is going up. Like I said, I think if you look at it the way I've been looking at it over the last few days, I think we're on a first leg of hyperinflation. I think Trump realizes where we're at and where we're going, and he's coming up with a new monetary system. Part of what he and Besant has been talking about. They're just giving you out a few hints. If they say too much, the deep state's going to try to outrun them, outfleece them, and so they got to keep it kind of on the quiet for the moment, but give you just enough information that if you're paying attention, you'll see. I don't know if you want to be like me. I don't know. I'm all in on gold and silver besides my business. And like I said, in my business, I also basically sell a commodity, and that's guns. I've seen guns hyperinflate during like the pandemic when guns are so hard to get. They really went up in price just because you couldn't get any. So therefore, you could get a lot more for a used gun, and I could sell it for more. I paid more and I sold it for more. But now that things are in that market is kind of soft at the moment, I think that's going to turn around pretty quick here too. Uh, but at any rate, the market's kind of soft, and so I'm buying used guns pretty cheap and selling them. I'm making money. Don't get me wrong, but I'm selling them pretty cheap too. Uh, but I wouldn't even want to be in the new gun market. Some of that shit is so overpriced. We were just looking at, uh, a lever action Rossi in 44 Magnum, the one I was trying to buy again. They're $800. That's dealer cost is $800. So you throw $160, 20% on top of that. So what are you talking? 960, almost a grand for a lever action rifle, and it's not even a top brand. It's a knockoff. Rossi's made in Brazil, but then again, maybe the tariffs is what's got that pushed up. But still, that ought to help Marlin and Henry that are made here in the States, because now those prices are close enough to the American-made product that I think a lot of people are going to pivot and start buying American-made, and that's what the tariffs are all about. Get prices up to where they're fair, a fair and legitimate price in the United States, and people will start buying the American product. But at any rate, geez, I keep getting off on different tangents this morning. At any rate, look at those charts. You'll see that I believe we're on the first leg of hyperinflation, and all fiat currencies across the world are in the same situation. All markets across the world, no matter what fiat currency you're in a you're at a gold all-time high, you're a silver all-time high, and those markets are running ahead of us. I just heard, I want to say it was Canada, but I'm not 100%. Just this morning, briefly, I heard it that, and I double checked this, but I think it was Canada that priced in Canadian dollars, the gold just went to 5,000. But in one of the markets, for sure, it just went to 5,000, and I think it was priced in Canadian dollars. Just went to 5,000. That's coming for us too. It's just no doubt it's on its way. And again, it's part of that hyperinflation. The one way I think about it, and a lot of people think of it differently, but the way I think of it is when I buy an ounce of silver, I've locked in my purchasing power at that time. What do I mean by that? Well, when I buy, let's say an ounce of silver today would buy me X, whatever that is, this basket of goods, let's say this bag of groceries, whatever you want to make that bag of groceries up as. Let's say your silver ounce is worth $42. So whatever that basket is or that bag of groceries is at $42. Well, a year from now, that basket of groceries might cost me $60 for the same bag of groceries. But in theory, my ounce of silver will still will still purchase that same bag of groceries. In other words, silver will be $60 a year. If that bag of grocery goes up by that much, silver will go up by that much as well. Maybe even overrun it, just because you are seeing a currency a shift right now. Not only currencies, but an investor shift. They're getting out of risky, and everything else that's priced in dollars or fiat currency is risky. They're getting out of that, and they're going, at least to some degree, they're going to gold and silver. And as gold and silver continues to outshine everything else, including Bitcoin, you'll see more and more money come out of these other investments like Nvidia, Bitcoin, all the shit coins, whatever. When those no longer work, and that day is coming, people are going to realize it'll take them a little time, but they'll realize it over time, and you'll see more and more investments come to physical gold and silver. That's about what I got to say for today. I hope this all made a lot of sense. If you got any questions, holler. Um, if you would, take the second before you check out here to like this video if you like anything I've been saying. Also, subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you're finding me for the first time, I'd appreciate it to subscribe. I want to get this out to more people. And please leave a comment. It doesn't matter what it is, negative, positive, just a thumbs up, whatever. But if you leave a comment, even to comment, I made it 32 minutes, that helps the algorithms and helps this get out to more people. Trying to build a community through truth. I appreciate it, guys. Have a great day. See ya. Bye.